My editorial was about the alternative right mindset of Donald Trump. Now, while I agree with the main claim of the argument, I felt there was not enough supporting evidence in the subclaims. The editorial seems to persuade the reader not to give their vote to Trump because of his alt right way of thinking. However, it could have been put together in a much better way. Now, the editorial makes several points about the information it talks about, but there are areas that could be improved to further strengthen the argument. One of the main points of the editorial is how Donald Trump and the alternative rights share a similar mindset. Now, if this statement is true, the editorial has given a lot of information on how their mindsets and thinking is similar, but the editorial just states this in the beginning. It only states how they have similar mindsets. It doesn't go into detail until later about explaining what that really means. And when they do go into explaining later, it doesn't give a lot more information. Now, it goes off into talking about how Hillary Clinton has linked the alt-right to Donald Trump's campaign. Now, it says they did this a month ago. Well, like the editorial was linked to him a month ago, but it doesn't like it tells about how at what rally she mentioned it and when she mentioned this, and just says that Hillary Clinton mentioned this in a Nevada rally, linking Donald Trump to the alternative rights. They don't explain how she linked them to him. They just explain that she did do this. That's what she has done, but not how and what she said or any exact words or quotes. Um, so it only says a month ago. Now I got this editorial in the beginning of September, so there's no exact date on when this rally took place, which the editorial could have added the exact date, which would have been much better to for like fact checking things like that. If someone wanted to actually watch a debate and see what Hillary Clinton said to connect them to each other, they would have to search by location of the rally, which is the it's only what the editorial gave. It didn't give an exact date. So just by location. Um, the oral also goes on to say that immigration, it's the alternative rights main issue, but it only states that 8% of Americans view that is an issue, um, which begs the question, like, what 8% did they get? Like, what demographic of Americans did they select, and where? Because when talking on immigration, the opinions will differ based on location, like on who is affected. Is it Americans in the North or Americans from the South? Americans from the South might have a bit more to say about immigration, but Americans in the North might not be able to say that much. Now it said 8% of Americans view immigration as a problem, but it doesn't tell you which part of America or which portion or how many Americans they surveyed to get this information from, which the editorial should have done in order to make it more to make their claim um, have more value to it. And yeah, so it just goes on to talk about like that 80% feel that it's a problem and how the alternative rights view it as their main problem. Um, Now it also in the next point, the editorial talks about Richard Spencer and how he was the one who formed who came with the term alternative right in 2008. Now, the editorial gives a brief description of who Richard Spencer is, but it doesn't talk about what he's done through the alt rights. It doesn't talk about like um, how he's talked about the alt rights or how he's like defended the alt rights. It just shows that he was the one who came up with the term. Now, it mentions that how Richard Spencer's ideals, he advocates for the progress of Americans who have European descent, which is basically the general population of the alt rights, is white Americans of European descent. Now, it mentions that how Richard Spencer was the one who got their names because he does advocate with them. He has the similar ideas as them, but it doesn't tell, and it explains how they got their like name, but not their start. The editorial does not mention how the alternative rights got their start and how they formed. It only mentions where they got their name. And it just explains that only. It doesn't show formation, when it started, where it started, who were the first members. It just mentions that Richard Spencer was the one who came up with the name, which it could have done more on to give the like just to bring more light to the alternative rights and what they really stand for. One of the final points that the editorial falls short on is when it links Donald Trump to the alternative rights. Um, the only standing point that they have for linking Donald Trump to the alternative rights is through Stephen Bannon, because the editorial mentions that Donald Trump hired Stephen Bannon to manage his campaign, but the editorial doesn't really talk about who Stephen Bannon is. It just mentions that he is a light in the alternative rights organization. But Bannon has he claims to have made the Breitbart website. He claims to be the CEO of Breitbart, which is a website, an alternative right webpage, and it's a news website with a big focus on the election. And it mostly focuses on slandering Hillary Clinton, talking about how she's weak and strong, and boosting Donald Trump and calling him bold and prominent, and how it goes on to talk about how things that Hillary Clinton has done bad and things that Donald Trump has done right. And it mostly focuses on those issues. And that's the only thing. Other than that, it doesn't have anything else that talks about uh, how Donald Trump is further connected. It just mentions Stephen Bannon, the creator of Breitbart, is who Donald Trump hired to manage his campaign. Now, while that's good, it doesn't really go on to talk in detail about what Trump has done that connects him personally to the alternative rights. So it's nothing that's super concrete. Now, I feel that the editorial is heading in the proper direction, but it doesn't go far enough in proving that Donald Trump's connected. However, it does explain, the editorial is called Donald Trump's alt-right mindset, which the editorial does go far enough in mentioning that, but it could have done a bit more in further proving, because the editorial does seem to try to persuade the reader to give their vote to Hillary Clinton instead of Donald Trump, and in order to do that, it could have done better in explaining what it was trying to say in order to do that. So it does go far in talking about his alt-right mindset, but if it really wanted to hit home on giving your vote to Hillary Clinton, it could have done a lot better in certain areas.